Hey everybody, this is Dr. B and Danishka Pardo is on the line with me, and we are excited that this is our last week of our 20 pounds and 12-week weight loss challenge. It has been a long time coming. We've gone through COVID, we've faced some economy issues, we've been dealing with racial injustice, we've been dealing with the COVID-15, putting on 15 pounds. And now we have our summer that we're facing and all of the different things that are going on this summer. But by the grace of God, here we are 12 weeks later. We started this back in May of this year. And now here we are toward the end. It's been 12 weeks later, and we're excited to be at the end of this journey. So today what we'll do, we didn't have our session last week. What we'll do is talk about maintenance and then also what we do beyond maintenance. So the topic is maintenance and beyond. Danishka's here. She can say hello.
I'm here.
So I'm going to go into the maintenance phase, and then we'll go on to talk a little bit more about actually we're going to start with the evolution phase. So most of you all have been placed on 1,000 to 1,600 calorie diet. Typical diet is between 2,000 to 2,500, depending on your basal metabolic rate and what your height, your weight, all that different stuff is. But for the most part, people who've been doing this program, you're definitely way below the calories that you usually eat. And so after we finish, we reach the phase or we reach our weight loss goals, it's time for us to evolve into or transition to going back to eating our regular calorie intake. And so it's important for us to know about the transition phase, and this is what we'll discuss here and how to transition out of the weight loss phase. All right, so there is a science behind the weight loss phase. It's not, okay, I'm finished with the diet. I reached my weight loss goal. Now I'm going back to eating what I was eating before. No. We cannot do that, because if we do, we'll be in a world of hurt, and we'll be back to where we were before, and we're going on the yo-yo. And our goal is to not have you on the yo-yo diet where you're losing weight, gaining weight, putting it on, losing weight, gaining weight. So what we have here is a little, basically like a diagram or calculations on how we determine how many calories you should return to transition to based on your basically your BMI and your height and your weight and your resting metabolic rate. So for most of us, if you've been with our program, we've asked you to purchase a scale that has the body composition analysis. Part of the body composition analysis, there is a portion called the basal metabolic rate. That's the number that we use to determine how many calories we should put you in, what your calorie deficit should be during this weight loss phase. So we're going to use that same number to determine how we should transition and what our regular, how we should transition out of that. So let's say, for example, you were doing your resting metabolic rate, your basal metabolic rate, I should say, is 1,350 calories. Depending on how active you are, once you come out of your weight loss phase, this will tell us how many calories you should have. So we're going to use this. And then we're going to also look at the activity levels to determine how many calories we should have. So if you're a person that says you're somewhat active, you're working out moderately between 3 to 5 days per week, then your activity level, or which is physical activity level, will be about 1.5. So we're going to use this diagram. Why can't I think of what the name of this is? But we're going to use this calculation. We're going to plug it in, and we're going to determine how many calories. So here we have right now, we're doing, if your resting metabolic rate is 1,350, we're going to multiply that by our physical activity level of the 1.55, and we're going to come up with 2,100 calories. So if you originally were starting out about 1,350 during the weight loss phase, eventually our goal will be to get you back up to about 2,100 calories, because that's how much your body needs to maintain itself based on your activity levels, your height, your weight, and just who you are, what your body requires to sustain itself throughout the day. And once you get to that phase, that's going to be your maintenance phase. So as we transition, what we need to do is slowly begin to add those carbs back into our diets, increase our calories, We're going to add about 100 calories per week, and it's going to usually take about 4 weeks to transition. So it's not immediately, okay, we're done with our weight loss phase, let's go back to eating and jump all the way up to 2,100 calories. We want to transition because during this time, we're also going to be monitoring our weight to make sure that this is a guesstimate in terms of the mathematics and the calculations that we're doing. So as you're going through the weeks and you're adding more things on, you're still going to be checking your weight to see, am I putting on weight? Am I still losing weight? Or am I maintaining? And our goal is to have you maintain as you increase your calories throughout the time that you're going through your evolution. All right, so this is a sample evolution phase, right? We finished the weight loss phase. Now we're ready to start eating the regular foods that we were eating before. And I will say, not all those regular foods. We're not heading to Popeyes and Chick-fil-A all the time and just eating all the junk foods, but we're going to be increasing our calorie intake, and the goal is to still eat healthy. We're eating to live. So here you can see, we talked about the lean and green and the selfie meals. So for the most part, you'll still have your same lean and green. Then if you were doing that plan where you were doing like the protein shakes and meal replacements, you'll continue to have your meal replacements throughout the day. And then you'll start to add vegetables for that first week. So you'll do, most of our patients, you guys are doing a lean and green, a salad, and then maybe a protein shake and then a couple snacks. So you would just add on to what your current regimen is, a cup of vegetables. And then week 2, you're going to add on something else. You're going to do your lean and green, a meal replacement, your cup of vegetables, and a piece of fruit, and maybe a dairy for week 2. And then as you see, I won't go through all of this, you see that as you're progressing throughout each of these weeks, you're adding more and more things to it. But they're still all low calorie, and we're trying to keep them around 100 calories every time that we go up. And every time we go up, every week, we're still checking our weight to make sure that we're not adding weight on. Because if we do start to add weight, then we want to stop and not increase our calories anymore, because that's telling us, hey, this is what my body needs based on my physical activity level and the amount of food that I'm eating in order to maintain. So the minute, let's say you were 155 pounds, you reached your goal weight, you start adding on, you've been able to maintain 55 pounds at week 2, and you're still 155 pounds at week 2, even though you've added on some things, then let's stick with that. Then you go to week 3, you're still 155 pounds and you've added on a few more things, a few more fruit, dairy, or vegetables, then we're going to continue adding on more. But if you get to week 4 and you start adding on these other additional items on this section, and you notice that you jump to 157 pounds, that means that if you're doing your same activity that you've been doing, and then all of a sudden you're starting to put on weight, that means your body does not require these extra calories. And so we're going to want to take this back down to eliminate these two and stick with, it may be 1,900 calories instead of the 2,100 calories. So this is a kind of trial and error, and that's why we have to go slow with it and really pay attention to what our body requires before we jump all the way back to our regular calorie intake. So use this as a guide when you're determining how many calories your body requires. All right, so that was the evolution phase. Now the next phase, which is one of the hardest phases, is that maintenance phase. This is where people get into trouble with the roller coaster, keeping the weight off and keeping the weight off long term. This is our goal for you. So I'm going to go over just a few things that we've been talking about throughout the 12 weeks that we're here in order for you to lose the weight and then keep it off. So in the beginning, we talked about exercise, and during the weight loss phase, the most important component of it really was focusing on your eating, getting in good, healthy, low-calorie meals, lots of vegetables, lots of fruit. We're doing our lean meats, our greens, fruit, and all of that stuff. So now, and that was the main focus, but now as we transition to the maintenance phase, it becomes more important to exercise. And so in the beginning, we were saying 30 minutes of exercise 5 days a week. Now we're saying it's important, if you really want to maintain this weight, you actually have to increase your activity level. And our goal during the maintenance phase was to start to slowly increase the amount of, so you were walking in the beginning. Then we started having you maybe run, increase the walking, then start to incorporate physical strength training, so that by the time you got to week 12, you're in much better physical shape, and now you can be more aggressive with the exercise. This is crucial. There's no way around some type of physical activity. You're gonna have to have about 210 minutes per week, or basically 40 minutes a day of moderate to vigorous exercise. So continue to do those power walking, continue to lift weights, try doing the high intensity interval training. People maybe consider thinking about doing a marathon or a 5K or something like that, but you've got to be active no matter what, and incorporate that into your daily routine. Eating breakfast, we all emphasize the importance of eating breakfast. You're coming off of a fast in the evening time, and if you try and go all day until 1 or 2 o'clock before eating, or even going to the end of the day without eating, it's not uncommon for you to end up overeating. Your body is starved, it goes into starvation mode, the metabolism slows down, and then you end up overeating towards the end of the day because you didn't have anything to eat. So continue to eat your breakfast. We also want you to continue eating lots of protein and high fiber diets, and high fiber foods, I should say. The benefits of the protein and the fiber is they're both going to give you a sense of fullness compared to the carbs and the low protein, just the carb foods. So continue to eat high protein foods and definitely bulk up on that fiber, because those will help control, also if you're diabetic, it's going to help to control the blood sugars. The other thing, some of this stuff is about accountability. You're going to continue to weigh in weekly. Remember, we talked, this is something that you're going to maintain for a lifetime. It's not just for the 12 weeks. So we usually recommend Sundays are your days to reflect and do your weigh-ins. Same thing. This is until death do you part. You're going to continue every single week to weigh in, and we'll go a little bit more into the weighing in on a weekly, because if you start noticing that you're putting on pounds, then we have to make some adjustments. But if you don't weigh in, you're not going to know where you are, and that becomes problematic. Mind those carbs, right? So for the most part, during your weight loss phase, we were really trying to cut back on carbs. We still want you to limit your carbs. We used to say about 40 to 50% of the meals, and then just really bulk up on those lean and greens. Those are the foods that are going to help keep you healthy, fight off disease, and then also help to maintain your weight. The next thing I would say is lifting weights. As we get older, we start to lose our muscle mass. Arms get flabby, legs get flabby, our thighs, our hips. The weights become important because it helps with the more muscle that we have, the easier our body is our body is able to burn calories faster than if we have fat. So we want to continue strength building, doing your weights at least 3 times a week. That will be incorporated into this 210 minutes of exercise throughout your week. So you maybe set it for Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, you do your 30 minutes. We talked about that women's workout, or the Workout for Women app. It has a bunch of different strength training, physical activity exercises on there. So you can do that, utilize those. You don't have to go to the gym. I know some folks are not comfortable right now because we're going through COVID. So it's not something that you have to go to the gym to do this. You can do this from the comfort of your own home. 5-pound dumbbells, just lifting your own weight, doing those high intensity interval training, all of that stuff will help to maintain and tone. Next thing, we're doing a lot of the same things we did before. Stay hydrated, continue to drink your water, stay consistent with this routine. We really worked on getting a routine down in the mornings where we're waking up, doing the same thing every morning. Have your meditation or plan out your day, brush your teeth, throw out your workout gear, throw on your workout gear, and then head out to wherever it is, whether it's a walk, Zumba, watching a YouTube video and dancing, but doing some type of physical activity. Don't change any of that. This has to be something you maintain on your journey to health in order to maintain the weight loss. Also, we had that really important talk last week that talked about the importance of sleep and how that can impact our weight. So definitely continue working on getting that sleep. If you have a hard time sleeping, you're dealing with sleep apnea, don't be afraid to use your CPAP machine. Don't be afraid to use the melatonin or some of those other sleeping aids. Turn off all the electronics as you get closer towards the end of the night, so that you do get to a place where you're feeling calm and rested, so that you are able to have a good night's sleep. Keep the room temperature cool. I think Cache was telling us we were supposed to keep the temperature between 65 and 66, which is really cool, but that's when we get our best sleep at those temperatures. Then we want to control our stress. Stress will impact. Sometimes we have the stress eating, or our body, things will react when we have a lot of stress, and impacts our cortisol levels. So we want to make sure we're controlling our stress. If you have your stress, if you want to journal or meditate, exercise is a great way to help control stress levels. Pray, remove the stressor if you can. So definitely want to control your stress. Keep a food journal. This is a way that you're going to be accountable for the food that you eat. When you know better, you do better. So you have your MyFitnessPal or your Fitbit or your My Healthy Plate, whatever it is, continue to log, because you're going to be keeping track of your foods. And when you see, if you go to the Cheesecake Factory, and I always bring up Cheesecake Factory because I love my red velvet cheesecake, and I know my red velvet cheesecake is 1,600 calories. So because I know that, I am not going to eat 1,600 calories in one day. I'm going to chop that up. So you just need to know and be mindful of what you're eating and how many calories, because that's going to help you make good decisions. And then, of course, continue to eat those vegetables because they're high in fiber, low in calories, and they'll fill you up. Last few that I want to point out is to meal prep, right? So plan your week out. If you don't plan your week out, listen, say if you don't plan, you plan to fail. If we don't plan our week out in terms of what we're going to be eating, if we're taking work food to work, you know, taking our lunch to work, or what we're going to have for dinner, what ends up happening is, oh my goodness, it's almost 7 o'clock. I don't know what I'm eating. Let's go to carry out. So we end up at Chick-fil-A, or we end up at McDonald's, or we end up someplace that we really shouldn't be because we didn't plan our days out. So we have to continue to meal prep. Remember, we're still going to be eating small, frequent meals throughout the day, every 2 to 3 to 4 hours. All of those same techniques that we talked about before to maintain the weight loss. So then, of course, it's important to remember that this is an iterative process, that there may be some setbacks. You know, you may put on a few pounds. You may end up having some cheat days. You go on vacation, you're enticed to overeat or have a few extra alcoholic beverages or something like that. We're human. The only thing we can do is get back up if we fall and keep going. Don't be too hard on yourself. You have one bad day, like Lauren was saying, you get back up and you keep going. Expect some of those setbacks, but don't beat yourself up to the point where you have one bad day and then that one bad day turns into 2 bad days, and then it turns into 3, and then a week, and then 2 weeks, and you just give up. If you have a bad day, take a look at what went wrong and then work to make that correction so that you don't have another bad day the day after. And then lastly, I will say, just remember that this is a lifelong journey and an iterative process. We're going to be checks and balances throughout the time. You're going to utilize all of those steps that we talked about to help you maintain, to help you stay accountable, to be mindful of all of the different things that you're trying to accomplish, and realize that this is not something that now that I've arrived, I lost my weight, I can go back to doing whatever I was. Because if you do have that mindset, whatever, you're going to be back to where you were. So, if you lost 30 pounds, we don't want you to go back and put the weight back on afterwards. We have to do what we've been doing in order to maintain and keep the success with our weight. All right. The last thing I will point out is that you want to know your bumper number. This is what I call the weight regain. So let's say that, you were able to reach you're under 200 pounds now, and that was your goal. And maybe 4 or 5 months later, because you're continuing to weigh yourself every week, you're starting to know, okay, I'm 200, now I'm 202. And then a couple of weeks later, I'm 205, and then I'm 207. That has to be a red flag for you, where you say, okay, it's time for me to begin to make some adjustments, be very mindful. If I stopped any of the routines that I was supposed to, whether I stopped monitoring my meals, have I stopped eating foods that are healthy, have I increased the sugar content, or am I drinking drinks that I shouldn't be, am I exercising? Begin to look at some of the behaviors that you really that you were sustaining throughout the time that you were here, and now has anything changed, and begin to take corrective action if you start to notice that you're putting on weight. Don't wait till you get 20 pounds back on before you start. You have to start within that 5 to 7 pounds, because it gets really hard. And our goal is not to have you yo-yoing back. Use that time, because you're weighing every week, to take those self-corrective actions. And of course, Danushka and I are here if you need that guidance and support to continue on this journey. I'll say to continue, if you're taking any appetite or weight management medications, don't stop taking those. We talked about I think in week 8 or week 9 on what our body is going to try to do as we lose our weight. We have a set point. The set point, if you came in at 260 pounds, the body is used to being 260 pounds. If you've been 260 pounds for 10 years, it's not going to change. That set point won't change after 6 months. The body's going to fight very hard to get back to that new set point. And that is why it's so important for us to, 1, maintain the routine that we have, but 2, to also maintain those medications. We consider this to be like a chronic disease. So the same way we're treating blood pressure, diabetes, cholesterol issues, and we kind of have to use those medications to help stabilize and to keep things under control. We do the same thing when we're dealing with weight. So don't be alarmed if we're recommending you to continue on your weight management medications until we can get that new set point. And it's hard right now for us to really know what that is. The science is still, I think, evolving, and we're learning about the whole weight thing. But sometimes it can take 2, 3, or even 4 years before the body says, oh, okay, this is my new normal. My new normal is 199 pounds. I guess that's where I need to be. I'm not going to tell whoever, I'm not going to tell Bernie or Dr. B, I'm not going to tell you that you need to keep eating or to keep releasing this hunger hormone because I'm trying to get you back up to 270 pounds. So it takes some time for that new set point, and that's why we utilize the medications to help maintain so that you don't go back and you're not constantly doing that to tug of war of, I know I really don't want it, but I really do want it, but I shouldn't eat it, and the cravings and all of that stuff like we talked about. All right, so that's the end for the most part. Actually, I want to, Danishka's going to jump in and we'll go back in. But before she jumps in with her section, I just want all of us who are on here now to think about some end of the year goals for 2020. Personal goals, physical fitness goals, weight goals. We have about 4 months left in this year. It's been a rough year to say the least, but it doesn't mean that we can't go out without a bang in terms of our physical health. We can take control of our physical health. So I want you all to think about some goals that you want to set. Big goals that are realistic for you to reach towards the end of before December 31st, we go into 2021. Yeah, we suffered, we struggled, we're frustrated, we put weight on, we went with all of these different things, but hey, by the end of the year, we can say we made it through, and this is what I have to show for this rough year. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and then I'm going to let Danushka share her screen and let her take over. And while she's doing that, I'm going to put out, you guys, if whoever's on now, if you want to maybe just type something in terms of goals that you can think of you want to accomplish before the end of the year. I'm going to type something out, and you can write that in the chat box if you have any goals that you want to set to reach.
Okay. All right, so I'm just trying to get to my page, see if it gets there the right way. So give me 1 second here. I'll try that one more time. Nice.
Any questions while she's pulling up her slides? Any questions or comments, feel free. Type them in the chat if you think of any questions, because we've gone over a lot of information this year, or I should say over the last 2 weeks. And these should all be available for you to hear and to listen to at a later time.
All right, so we decided to go back through what exactly are macronutrients. This was been a talk amongst everyone just to make sure we're on the same page as to what is the difference between counting macros and, say, counting calories. This gets into a little bit more into those who are really have, number one, executed their goals and need to zone in a little bit more, who are looking for a little bit more weight loss and trying to rid of fat and try to increase their muscles. The biggest reason why people might count their macros versus just calories. And the reason why is just that your macros are pretty much a component of your body and what your body needs in order to work every day. So your body's made up of your carbohydrates, your proteins, and fats. That's considered your macros. Those are three things we look at. Your carbohydrates are pretty much providing you with energy and helping your body function. Is providing glucose for your body in order to, strive on energy. Your protein as well does the same thing, but it's also It also has amino acids, and they play a role in repairing muscle, body tissue, also improving your skin, your muscles, and your bones. Your fat also help with absorption of vitamins and regulating metabolism as well. So each of them are very important. So a lot of times we're always trying to improve our fat, as we might have high cholesterol, so we want to stay away from fatty foods and different things like that. But there are fats that are actually healthy for you versus not healthy. And we'll get into that on the next page. One second here. So, what are your carbohydrates? These carbohydrates can be complex or simple carbs. Simple carbs are your carbs that pretty much I'll describe as not healthy for you. These are foods that are typically in a box. I like to say if it didn't come from the ground, it's not healthy for you. And from the ground would mean your complex carbs, and that would mean vegetables such as sweet potatoes. Potatoes, of course, aren't on this list for complex carbs because it does have a high glycemic count. But your other vegetables would be yams, they would be yuca, there are vegetables such as carrots, peas, string beans. Those are your complex carbs. And the reason why we call them complex is that it's harder for your body to break down and break into sugars. So your body does not experience a spike in your sugar. A simple carb like the potato or rice or what else, bread, those are simple carbs that are going to increase your sugar right away. That makes it so that your body will go in quick and hurry and try to produce insulin to break it down even more. And so that right there gives your body a challenge, which is why we do not like the simple carbs. We want to keep your body able to like have a harder time to break down the complex carbs, and you'll have a nice even glucose instead of having that surge of glucose that goes right up. So this is also including legumes, your greens, everything like that. As far as proteins are considered, you could either, have it from your meats, you could have it from eggs, nuts, seeds, legumes, soys, and dairy products as well too. This is what your body needs, but of course, if we're going to have meat, we want you to have lean meat, healthy choices that are harder to, I guess actually, it doesn't actually have as much fat. We want it to have less fat so that you are, staying lean. When you look at red meats, things like that, those are higher in fat, so we do not always want those. We do say you could have it, but just in limitation. And as far as fats, you have a couple different types of fats. You have your unsaturated fats. This includes your olive oils, your avocado, fatty fish like salmon, nuts and seeds, and flaxseed oil, canola oil, things like that. Those are healthier fats for you. Whenever you actually break down your fat, you're looking at, your healthy fat versus your bad fat, which is the LDL. The foods that are unsaturated fats help your healthy fats. That's the HDL. Whenever you go to your doctors and you have that checked, that's your HDL. Those are foods that actually help you metabolize vitamins, help you with absorption, helps you with a lot of different things as far as your growth. When we look at the saturated fats, those are the fats that's going to clog up your arteries.
Yes or no? No, you want to go to Chick-fil-A? Chipotle. You want to go to Chipotle?
Hey there, Melania. You think she can hear me? Oh, there she goes. Okay.
I'm going to mute her.
Just a brief interruption. The saturated fats are obviously in your meat, your dairy products, pastries, and fried foods. So we want to stay away from those because those could increase our risk for heart disease, cardiovascular disease, high blood pressure, such like that, just because they're clogging up your arteries and it's messing up the blood flow to your heart. We also have coconut. Now, coconut is one of those questionable things where it is saturated, but it also has unsaturated fats as well too. So it's one of those things that you could have, but you don't want to overdo it as well. I love coconut, unfortunately, and I love to actually, use it. So I have to be careful with that. Now, the question is, tracking your macros versus just calories. It's time consuming to get into macros versus just calories. We just do the calories because number one, as long as you are cutting calories, you are going to lose weight. But of course, whenever you're choosing foods, the foods for your future throughout your whole life, you want to choose the right foods, because obviously this plays a big difference on your cholesterol levels, your sugar levels. So when it comes down to tracking macros, a lot of people are doing this to gain muscle strength. So in this series, we've said a lot about cutting carbs and not eating too many carbs and having a higher protein. And that's simply because we want to increase your muscle mass. Whenever you have higher muscle mass, you're actually being able to burn more calories faster. So the more muscle you have, the more more calories that you could break down. And so whenever we have carbohydrates, those are usually foods that are higher in sugar. So we want to actually decrease that, which is why we wanted to do calories and focus on that. But as you go through your journey, you may want to gain more muscle strength. So you may want to look at, okay, how much throughout the day am I having of protein? How much carbs am I having? And what type of carbs am I having when I have them? So whenever we have, say, for instance, a lean and green nutrition meal, we're looking at, are you having a nice amount of protein? And then are you having a nice, side of greens? And whenever we are looking at our plate of food, we're looking at our plate of food is technically half of your plate should be involving complex carbohydrates, your greens, your carrots, your sweet potato or anything like that. You want to make it as colorful as you want. That has most nutrients. So whenever we're getting into trying to zone in on how much more muscle you want to gain, you want to just increase your protein and have a good amount of carbs and unsaturated fats. Of course, like we said, cons of tracking your macros is really just tracking the macros takes a lot of times. Most times, some people aren't really giving them enough of the protein, so that might be a problem for some people. And then when you're going to different places, you may not have enough choices, so that's another hard thing for you. But as far as your pros, you're able to build more muscle. You're able to track in exactly what you're eating and have more control of what you're eating to reach your goals. And that's pretty much it. Any questions for me at all? Fermi, you're there?
I'm here. I am just trying to get back to the video. Okay. I'll pull my screen up again. Thanks, Danishka. I will highlight too, we did really, just to highlight again, the importance of also being mindful of calories, of your sugar, of the fiber in the foods, and reading those labels, because they do tell us a lot about what's in the foods. So you want to be careful with the sugar and the salt, the sodium intake, especially if you're someone who's dealing with high blood pressure, or if you're trying to prevent yourself from having high blood pressure. And if you're diabetic, definitely watch them, be mindful and read those labels when it comes to the amount of sugar, because oftentimes the sugar content or the amount of sugar that are in the foods are often disguised. You may not think of ketchup as having a lot of sugar, but actually there's a lot of sugar in ketchup. So just be mindful of reading the calories on the back of the labels when you pick something up, especially if you're in the middle aisles. Remember, we talked about shopping on the perimeter, because that's where most of the fresh foods are. When you start going into the middle aisles, that's where I call it the fake food and the processed foods are. And if you are going down middle aisles, just look at those labels. You notice most of the produce, they don't have labels on there to say what's in the produce sector. Like you look at a carrot, they don't have labels on there. It's when you start looking at those packaged foods that have been processed that we have to figure out what exactly are they putting in these foods. So pay close attention to that, because it definitely can impact your health, your inability to lose weight, and just overall decrease in risk of cancer, because there's a lot of junk that's being put into foods. So that's pretty much it. I'm super excited that we made it through this. Our hope is that this was beneficial to everyone who's listened, that you were able to, you have some things that you can take away from this. So let's see, I did ask if we think about some goals that we would like to work on reaching by the end of this year. So if you want, let's put them in the chat box now. I think someone put, where did the chat box go? My chat box disappeared. Tamisha, are you on? Can you see what people put in the chat box? This is your time now. Let's just take some time to think about what do we want to accomplish.
I know Milana wants slim waist and pretty face. I
Right.
thought you already had that.
The waistline was a huge issue for so many people, and watching that sugar intake is one of the biggest ways that we can get the waistline down, because that's where the sugar goes straight to that abdomen.
We have another one that said their goal and their weight every day is to do a HIIT and weight training 5 days of the week and be toned by the end of the year. Does that sound familiar, Fermi?
Yep. I mean, that's a good goal. I think being toned, especially as we get older, we start to get the little love handles around our waist, and then our arms get a little flabby. So trying to definitely working on toning and strength building is important, and it's a great goal.
I know my goal is to decrease my fat versus muscle. I think sometimes when the holidays come around, I tend to go a little crazy. So then I end up having to pay for it later, and I see that my fat go up and my muscle goes down. So my goal is to improve that by 5%.
Some important point about the holidays, which we are getting close to coming into. I think I was just talking to someone, and when they mentioned they're starting to put the Halloween costumes and decorations up and the candy and all that stuff. And this is the time of the year. I mean, we just got through COVID and so many people have put on the 15 pounds. Now we're getting ready for the holidays, and Lord knows, okay, 15 pounds within the last 6 months. And now here we've got holidays coming up where the average is maybe 5 to 15 pounds during the holidays. So we definitely are going to have to be very careful as we get to Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's and all of these different celebrations, because the struggle is real.
That's definitely true.
Anyone else have anything?
Let's see. I think we have one more. I want to begin working out daily and extend my no meat days to get off the plateau that I'm stuck on.
Excellent. I like that. I don't know if you've heard of the Meatless Mondays, where every Monday there's a goal just not have any meat. So that might be something to incorporate. Working out and then working out daily. I mean, it's hard, but once you get into the routine, you find something you like doing, it gets easier and it becomes habitual, where you don't even feel right that you haven't gone out. And that weight loss, the plateau. So we'll talk about that offline. I think this was Ms. Rochelle talked about that. The plateau is real too. And how do we break the plateau? Just a couple pointers for the plateaus. Usually we will start by looking at doing that food journal and looking very closely at every single thing that's being put in the mouth. Are we missing something? Are there calories coming from places that we don't realize they're coming from? Are there any adjustments that we can make in our current eating regimen? Do we need to take the calories down? So if you were at 1,200 calories, do we need to take it down to 1,100 calories, or do we need to increase calories? And then sometimes we'll make the recommendation to do a intermittent fasting, where we're just eating between 8 hours a day. So we might start in the morning, or 10 hours a day. Start in the morning at 9 o'clock and we stop at 6 o'clock. Sometimes that's enough to help break the plateau as well. So those are two strategies that we use. And then also trying to increase the type of activity, incorporating more of the high intensity interval trainings as opposed to some of the other less vigorous exercises that can also help to boost that metabolism, and then eating small frequent meals throughout the day. Plateauing is all too common, but utilizing some of those strategies can help to break that plateau so that you can get a reboot and start to get back into the weight loss phase. So anyways, I think those are most of the recommendations or some of the goals that people have set. So we will say congratulations. The hard part, we haven't talked, and some people may not be comfortable with saying how well they did on the program. So we won't ask, because we are recording this, for folks to come out and disclose that. But our hope is that you were able to be successful. If not, continue on this journey, continue to stride towards reaching your goals. Don't get discouraged if you did fall short or fell off the bandwagon. That's why Danishka and I are here. Utilize all of the information that you heard throughout the 12 weeks. There were some really valuable points throughout the great content between Lauren's Moments with Lauren and all of the mental health techniques and discussions that she provided us. Dr. Bowman, we had the cooking with the chefs. We had Susie that talked about all of the different disease processes that can be a part of the weight management. We talked about sleep, behavior modification. How do we deal with emotional and the mental components of weight and eating? So there were a lot of great content that we've discussed. And once again, I mentioned that you will have access to this throughout the time. So you can always go back and repeat and listen to these again. So thank you so much. For me, I'm Dr. B and my partner in crime.
I'm Danushka, and I'm so happy you guys made it through. This is, one of the first steps to getting to where you want to be, and just so happy that you decided to take this ride with us. Thank you, and I hope everyone reaches their goals.
Thanks, you guys.
Thank you.
Bye.